So we're back with some more unexplained discoveries, but before we get to the madness, I need y'all to help me unplug some more people out of the matrix. And you do that by spamming the like button, then putting hashtag unplugged in the comment section. All right, that's it. Let's get to the video.
Throughout history, countless groundbreaking discoveries have been made by scientists and experts. It's often astonishing to realize that many of these profound insights were not the result of meticulously planned experiments. Instead, they were discovered unexpectedly, as some would call it serendipity. In this video, we'll take a look at the most unexpected and surprising discoveries that stumped even experts themselves. From the surprising effects of penguin poop to the amazing Velcro, here are 20 things scientists discovered that shocked the whole world. Number 20. The insane effect of penguin poop. Penguins are among the most captivating creatures on Earth. Each species is a fascinating creature that leaves researchers interested and intrigued. It also helps that these guys are quite adorable, so it's definitely delightful to observe them. However, in recent research, scientists discovered something quite nasty about their excrement. It turns out these creatures have a talent for something unexpected, producing nitrous oxide, also known as laughing gas, through their feces. Not only do these creatures' poop make scientists lighthearted and feel a little out of it, but their guano also pumps a lot of nitrogen into the atmosphere. Scientists have discovered that this influx of penguin poop actually increases the levels of nitrous oxide in the atmosphere. And guess what? Nitrous oxide is a potent greenhouse gas, which means it contributes to the increasing temperatures of our planet. Number 19. Researchers and the world's first venomous frog. We've probably all had to attend laboratory classes before, and we all know that whenever one experiments, safety is the number one priority. And while scientists try their utmost best to uphold this while in the field, unexpected things happen sometimes. Brazilian biologists had their breakthrough the hard way. Carlos Jared, a researcher, was out doing fieldwork in the lush jungles of southwest Brazil. Amidst exploring, he encountered a seemingly harmless frog. Now, Carlos, as a biologist, is incredibly knowledgeable when it comes to the local ecosystem.
I mean, ever since I learned about poisonous frogs, anything that has any type of color to it, I stay away from. Period. That's my way of keeping myself safe.
Thinking that the frog was a harmless species, he picked up the little fella, not knowing that the tiny creature was holding a nasty secret. As soon as Carlos picked it up, things took a turn for the worse. The frog started thrashing and butting Carlos's hand with its head. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of this astonishing discovery. You see, many amphibians have a neat trick up their sleeve. Well, actually, their skin. They can secrete toxins through their skin as a defense mechanism. However, the frog Carlos picked up, known as Greening's frog, is a strange creature. It was the first frog ever discovered to forcefully inject toxins into a predator's bloodstream. When this sneaky frog feels threatened, it retracts the skin around its upper lip, revealing bony spines. And guess what? Those spines aren't just for show. Carlos, along with his collaborator Edmund Brody, uncovered that a gland at the base of each spine produces toxic mucus. So let this be a lesson. Carlos made a groundbreaking discovery, but he definitely knows better now than to pick up seemingly helpless creatures. Number 18.
So that just tells me to stay away from frogs altogether. You know what I'm saying? I don't even eat frog legs and people do that, but I'm staying away.
Cloning. We've all seen those sci-fi movies where scientists clone people and everything goes wrong, just like Murphy's Law. And so when scientists attempted to clone animals and succeeded, many people were appalled and disturbed by the idea. In 1996, a group of scientists in Scotland rocked the scientific community and the entire world with an incredible breakthrough, the successful cloning of a sheep named Dolly. Dolly was no ordinary sheep. She was the first mammal to be cloned from an adult somatic cell, which made this achievement so groundbreaking. Before Dolly, it was commonly believed that cloning mammals from adult cells was impossible. But these brilliant scientists, led by Dr. Ian Wilmot, proved everyone wrong. They took a cell from an adult sheep, fused it with an empty egg cell, and voila! Dolly was born an exact genetic copy of the adult sheep she was cloned from. The cloning of Dolly sparked discussions about the ethical implications of cloning, the potential for human cloning, and the concept of playing creator. It raised questions about the boundaries of science and the ethical considerations that come with such groundbreaking advancements. It was a moment that made us question what it means to be human and the consequences of tampering with nature. I'm all for studying cloning for the greater good. After all, this field of study can address the shortage of organ donors and more. But what's your take on this? Let me know in the comments down below.
That things often start out with good intentions, but they take a turn for the worse eventually. And what could start out good could end up being our demise. I don't know where they're headed with cloning, but hearing stuff like that should make you very nervous.
Number 17. Vaseline. In the late 1800s,
Vaseline?
a young chemist named Robert Chesebra was on a mission to find something extraordinary. He was intrigued by a substance found on oil rigs called rod wax that had remarkable healing properties. This substance would cling to the drilling rods, protecting them from rust and aiding in the healing of minor wounds. Robert Chesebra was determined to unlock the potential of this mysterious rod wax. He spent countless hours refining and purifying it, eventually creating what we now know as petroleum jelly, or Vaseline. To prove the incredible benefits of Vaseline, Robert Chesebra conducted a personal experiment. He would douse his skin in the sticky substance and then expose it to various extreme conditions like heat, cold, and even open flames. And of course, we all know that Vaseline stood the test. That's why it's one of the most versatile things we use to this day. Number 16.
Only thing my parents ever did was put it all over our face and our body. It felt like you could fry chicken or something like that. You know what I mean? But I didn't know it had where it originated from and what it was used for. It makes sense though, because it's the thickness of it. Yeah, you could probably get next to a flame.
Vantablack. Have you heard of Vantablack? You might have already seen your favorite influencers or artists use this newly discovered shade. In the world of colors, Vantablack stands out as a true marvel. It is the blackest substance ever created, absorbing an incredible 99.965% of visible light. Yes, you heard that right. It's so black that when you look at it, it's like staring into a never-ending abyss. Vantablack was developed by a team of scientists led by Dr. Sumatra Ghosh at Surrey Nanosystems in the United Kingdom. Initially designed for the aerospace industry and scientific applications, Vantablack quickly captured the attention and imagination of people worldwide. What's truly astonishing about Vantablack is how it's created. It's made up of a dense forest of microscopic carbon nanotubes that are about 3,500 times thinner than a human hair. These nanotubes are capable of trapping and absorbing almost all light that hits their surface. It's like a black hole in material form. When Vantablack was first unveiled, it took the art and design communities by storm. Many artists were inspired to create something out of this intriguingly dark shade. Number 15. Strikable match. The match that we use today was actually discovered accidentally. Back in the early 19th century, a chemist named John Walker was working in his laboratory, diligently conducting experiments. Little did he know that a simple accident would change the course of history. Legend has it that while striking a mixture with a wooden stick, he noticed a small dry substance on the end. Curious, he struck it against a nearby surface, and poof, the match burst into flame, igniting a eureka moment in John Walker's mind. You see, what John Walker had unintentionally discovered was a combination of chemicals that, when struck against a rough surface, created a tiny spark that could ignite a flame. This was the birth of the Strikable match, a simple yet revolutionary invention that would change the way we start fires forever. Number 14. Eternal storage. In the age of technology, storage is something incredibly valuable. Now, what if I tell you that you can now store things inside a small piece of glass? Researchers at the University of Southampton invented these glass discs that are said to be capable of storing up to a staggering 360 terabytes of data that will last forever. Well, as long as the Earth holds up, that is. But as you know, we already have hard drives, CDs, vinyls, and DVDs. However, all of these things are pretty perishable. DVDs and CDs can only last for several decades. And
we've come a long way from the floppy disk, the floppy disk era.
Hard drives tend to get corrupted or faulty after a while. And so many believe this small glass disk storage will be the next breakthrough in data storage.
Wow.
Number 13. Anesthesia. Is there anyone here who has been through surgery? Do you think you would have survived without anesthesia and painkillers? Most likely not, right? Now just imagine how it was in the 19th century before anesthesia was a thing.
They give you a shot of whiskey and tell you to brace yourself, it's about to go down.
Patients would undergo excruciating pain and trauma during procedures, making it a nightmare for both patients and surgeons. But little did they know that a fortuitous accident would change everything. In 1846, a dentist named Dr. William Morton was searching for a way to make dental procedures less agonizing for his patients. In his quest for a solution, he stumbled upon an unknown substance called ether. It was a risky move, but he administered it to a patient before the surgery, and magically, it alleviated the pain of the operation. It was a eureka moment that would change the course of medical history. Number 12. Mauve. Is mauve your favorite color? Well, you might be interested to hear about how it was discovered. In 1856, Sir William Perkin, a young chemist studying at the Royal College of Chemistry, was trying to find a cure for malaria when he instead stumbled upon a discovery that altered not the world of medicine, but of art, the color mauve. During his experimentation in search of a cure, he combined coal tar and a plant derivative known as quinine, forming a viscous black substance. In an attempt to remove the residue, he added alcohol, but to his surprise, the mixture transformed into a vivid purple shade, unintentionally making the first accidental use of modern synthetic dye. Before Perkin's game-changing discovery, dyes were derived from natural sources like plants, insects, and minerals. They were expensive to produce, faded quickly, and were a luxury reserved for the wealthy. Perkins gave people in the 1850s a chance to wear something vibrant without using the arsenic-loaded green dye. Number 11. Real ninth planet. Since Pluto was sadly removed from the list of planets in our solar system, we've only had 8 planets. However, some astronomers are now pushing the idea that there's still a 9th planet. The proposed Planet 9 is believed to be a massive planet, several times larger than Earth, and located far beyond the orbit of Neptune. It's thought to follow a highly elongated and tilted orbit, taking thousands of years to complete a single journey around the Sun. While the search for Planet 9 is ongoing, astronomers have identified peculiarities in the orbits of distant objects that align with the predicted presence of this enigmatic planet. However, direct observational confirmation is yet to be made, leaving room for further exploration and discovery. The theory of Planet 9 is quite controversial among astronomers, with many believing that this unseen planet will remain a theory. Number 10. The microwave. Microwaves are among the most used appliances in homes all around the world, but this thing was discovered by a complete accident. It all happened in 1945 when a man named Perry Spencer, an engineer at Raytheon Corporation, was conducting experiments with a magnetron, a device used in radar technology. Little did he know that his work would lead to a game-changing kitchen innovation. During one experiment, Percy noticed something peculiar. As he stood near the magnetron, he felt a curious sensation. It seemed that the candy bar in his pocket had started to melt. He set up a more controlled experiment, this time using popcorn kernels. Placing them near the magnetron, he watched in amazement as they quickly popped into fluffy, delicious popcorn. The wheels in his mind started turning, and he realized he had stumbled upon something extraordinary, a method to heat food using electromagnetic waves. Percy's accidental discovery laid the foundation for the microwave oven, a staple in nearly every household all over the world. Number 9.
Oh my, man, when the microwave started becoming so popular, man, our family members was just scaring everybody about it. Oh, you stand around it, you stand in close proximity to it, it's gonna do something, alter your molecular DNA or something like that. It was just so many theories floating around and just scaring us kids, bro. I used to tiptoe and look at the microwave just to make sure it ain't doing nothing. I don't know, man. I was scared of it. They had me scared, shook.
Ancient art in the Bruniquel Cave. Recently, in the depths of Bruniquel Cave in southwest France, scientists discovered a series of rock formations that altered what we know about Neanderthals. Through the years, we thought that Neanderthals were nothing but primitive creatures who relied on instinct. They're far from human ancestors who knew how to think and process thoughts. However, the stone formations reveal Neanderthals were more intelligent and perhaps more systematic than we initially thought. The stone formations, believed to be created by the Neanderthals, predate the earliest cave paintings by over 175,000 years. Now, what makes these rocks so fascinating is the fact that they weren't arbitrarily arranged or thrown in the cave. Instead, they seem to be arranged deliberately. They follow a pattern and a purpose. This is something unexpected for Neanderthals. It challenges the notion that they were solely focused on survival and lacked artistic expression or cultural practices. It turns out they were more like us than we ever imagined. Number 8. Cornflakes. Cornflakes, a breakfast that's well recognized around the world. But did you know
that you had to eat real quick or it became extremely soggy and nasty? It was a race to get it, to eat it while it was still crunchy before it was soggy, bro.
That its discovery was a complete surprise? In the late 19th century, two brothers named Dr. John Harvey Kellogg and Will Keith Kellogg were working at the Battle Creek Sanitarium, a health retreat in Michigan, USA. The brothers experimented with different ways to create healthy and nutritious meals for the sanitarium's patients. One day in 1894, while working on a wheat-based dough, the Kellogg brothers accidentally left their dough out for too long. When they returned, they found that it had become stale and hardened. Instead of discarding it, they passed it through rollers, hoping to flatten it into sheets for baking. But instead, they got flakes. And this is how this well-loved cereal was invented.
Wow.
Number 7.
Wow.
Wasps have distinguished faces. When you look at wasps or insects in general, it's easy to think that they all look the same. There's no way to tell them apart unless you really inspect them down to the slightest marking. However, a researcher recently discovered something astounding. Apparently, wasps can distinguish each other's faces. Now, just a heads up, if you're afraid of insects, you might want to brace yourself for these photos. The study revealed that Polistes fuscatus, aka paper wasps, can distinguish other wasps based on their facial features alone. Just imagine these tiny wasps meticulously examining each other's faces. After pulling several wasps into a maze, researchers discovered that these insects know and recognize one another's faces. This gives us a new impression of these creatures. This finding highlights the complexity and sophistication of social interactions among these wasps. They rely on facial recognition to differentiate between familiar nestmates and potential intruders. But as astounding as this discovery is, I still won't mess with these guys, especially on the slim chance that their ability to recognize faces transcends species. I wouldn't want a wasp chasing me around for weeks. Number 6. What is heavier, 1 pound of lead or 1 pound of feathers?
They're both 1
You've
pound.
probably had someone ask you, what's heavier, a pound of lead or a pound of feathers?
They're both
Now, most
1
people
pound.
might be compelled to answer that a pound of lead is heavier because, well, it's lead. But
They're
empirically
both
speaking,
1
two
pound.
bags, one filled with a pound of lead and the other with a pound of feathers,
Equal.
weigh exactly the same. This riddle might sound simple, but if we get into the nitty-gritty and ask experts about it, things get a little complicated. Some methods measure not only the gravitational force of an object, but also other forces at play, making our riddle even trickier. Feathers, despite having the same mass as lead, have a larger volume. This means they displace more air than lead does. And guess what? This has an impact on the forces acting on the objects.
Y'all know people will argue you down about that riddle. I've had people literally try to argue me down about it. And I just sit back and just stare at them, just be like, are you serious right now? And they be dead serious.
Due to the greater volume and displacement of air, feathers experience a greater buoyancy force. So if we don't weigh them in a vacuum, feathers will have a lower net downward force than lead. Who would have thought that air can make such a difference? Now imagine tethered horizontal strings attached to the objects being weighed. By displacing the samples, we can use the time periods of the system to determine their mass, which refers to how fast or slow the springs bounce. However, here's the catch. Moving bodies entrain a non-negligible amount of air, meaning that as objects move, they also carry or drag along a significant amount of air with them. In a simulation, researchers found that a bronze sheet standing in for lead would only entrain 0.01 grams of air, while a block of polystyrene representing feathers would entrain a whopping 0.5 grams of air. That's quite a difference. And it leads to different results when it comes to measuring the mass of these objects. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Psychologists conducted an experiment using blindfolded volunteers who were given boxes of equal size, each containing secured masses of lead and feathers. What's surprising is that the majority of the volunteers, a whopping 74% of them, felt that the box containing lead was heavier. It seems our perception of heaviness is influenced by an object's dynamical symmetry. Objects with symmetric mass distributions feel lighter than those with asymmetric distributions. Who knew our minds played tricks on us when it comes to weight perception? Basically speaking, our brains, gravity, and a load of physics affect how heavy things really are. So the next time someone asks you this riddle, you can tell them something pretty new and have a long discussion with them as you try to prove them wrong.
I'm not.
Number 5. Color theory in pills. What comes to your mind when you get prescribed a pill that's the color blue? What about yellow? You might have unconsciously assigned
Somebody probably said Viagra. That's the only thing I associate a blue pill with.
use for each pill depending on its color, and scientists found out that this might have an effect on its effectiveness. In a series of studies, researchers explored how people perceive the impact of drugs based on their color. They also investigated whether the color of a drug has any influence on its effectiveness. Now keep in mind that these studies focused on drugs that affect the central nervous system. So we're talking about some serious stuff here. The results of the studies on perceived drug response revealed some interesting trends. It turns out that colors like red, yellow, and orange are associated with a stimulant effect, while blue and green are linked to a tranquilizing or calming effect. Who would have thought that colors could have such an impact on how we perceive the response to many drugs? It's like a visual cue telling our brains what to expect. However, when it comes to the influence of drug color on effectiveness, things get a bit more complicated. The trials examining this showed inconsistent differences between color. So while the color of a drug might have some effect on how we perceive it, there isn't a consistent trend in terms of effectiveness. The color alone isn't enough to determine how well a drug works. The color seems to affect the pill's effectiveness, but it's not significant enough, or at least that's what we know in current studies. Who knows? It might turn out that there's more to this theory. Number 4. Dogs can feel the Earth's magnetic fields. I'm neither a dog nor a cat person. I don't really have a bias, you see. But in terms of being in tune with our planet, it seems like dogs have a clear advantage. While cats seemingly defy gravity with their fast reflexes that allow them to land on their 4 feet even at astonishing heights, a study in 2013 revealed that dogs can feel our planet's magnetic fields. It all started when scientists observed the pooping habits of dogs. When dogs poop, they tend to align themselves in either the north or south direction. Now you might think it's just a coincidence, but scientists strongly believe that dogs do this thing deliberately, not just when they're pooping, but also when they're peeing. There is an exception though. Male dogs seem to be a bit more carefree about which direction they face. Now you might be wondering why dogs do this. Well, the researchers came up with an incredible explanation. They believe that dogs have a sensitivity to the Earth's magnetic field. Like some other animals such as cows, deer, birds, fish, and whales, who use the magnetic field for navigation, our furry pals seem to have this ability too. It might sound a bit unbelievable, but hey, why not give it a try yourself? Next time you take your dog out for their bathroom break, grab a compass and see which direction.
I be trying to give them their privacy. Let them do what they do. I don't want nobody watching and studying me while I'm doing what I do, so no, I try to give them privacy.
They choose. It could be a fun little experiment to see if your dog is in sync with Earth's magnetic field. Number 3.
What?
Penicillin. Penicillin, also known as the wonder drug, is one of the most fascinating medicines ever discovered. Believe it or not, this life-saving wonder was accidentally stumbled upon. In 1928, a Scottish scientist named Dr. Alexander Fleming was working away on his last day before a well-deserved vacation. He accidentally left his petri dish out in the open, and when he got back to his laboratory, he discovered that the bacteria in his petri dish was being wiped out by a strange blue mold. Fleming knew that he discovered something incredible. However, when he first published his findings, no one really paid attention. It took nearly a decade for a group of scientists at Oxford to pick up where he left off. These guys, Howard Florey and Ernest Chain, realized the incredible potential of penicillin. It wasn't until 1942 that penicillin was safely administered, and shortly after, the medicine revolutionized the field. Countless lives were saved, and to this day, the number of people saved by this astonishing discovery continues to increase. Number 2. Fatburg repurposed. There's a reason we should all collectively be mindful of what we dump in our sewers. Because we just carelessly throw grease, oil, and all other gunk in there, we get something incredibly disgusting, the Fatburg. A portmanteau of fat, referring to the greasy gunk that makes these up, and berg, referencing an iceberg, with the word only invented for these disgusting objects a few years ago. Fatbergs refer to grease and cooking oils getting all cozy in the pipes, forming these shiny, sludgy masses that can trap all sorts of things. We're talking wet wipes, sanitary pads, condoms, and even food scraps. Ew, right? It's enough to make you lose your appetite. I sure hope you're not eating as you're watching this video. These fatbergs cause major headaches for sewage systems from London to Melbourne, clogging up the works and causing overflows. A team of brilliant Canadian researchers have come up with a wild idea. They believe that fatbergs could be turned into biofuel. This goes to show that science can be pretty amazing, from disgusting gunk to a source of energy. How cool is that?
Wow.
And now it's time for today's topic. Day by day, scientists conduct countless observations and experiments to learn more about the planet we live on. However, there are times when they uncover things that might not have been meant to be known by man. One such forbidden experiment is now making waves in forums around the internet. The story goes that scientists put a camera in a coffin for research purposes. When they turned it on, they screamed. Researchers saw the man with his eyes open inside the coffin, and his expression was one of horror. The man, against all odds, was alive. However, when scientists went to the scene and opened the coffin, the man wasn't breathing and no longer had a pulse. What could have happened? Throughout history, there have been several instances of people allegedly being buried alive. In the 19th century, particularly...
That would suck, man. How do we stop that from happening? Like, how does that even... I know people can go unconscious and you know what I mean, not have a pulse and stuff like that, go into a coma and possibly not have a pulse. So that could be the situation. Then when they come out of it, they in a pine box, 6 feet deep, and there's nothing they can do about it. Bro, that is, yeah, man. And what is the solution for that? If any?
During the Victorian era, stories of being sealed alive in coffins circulated.
Wow.
These fears gave rise to a curious invention, the safety coffin. These coffins were designed with elaborate mechanisms and contraptions like bells and flags attached to the body to ensure that if someone woke up after being mistakenly declared dead, they could signal for help or escape their underground prison. But here's the thing, while these rumors and inventions captured the public's imagination, there's very little evidence to support the idea that premature burials were a widespread occurrence. I wouldn't dare put a camera inside someone's coffin for fear that I might see something supernatural. But is it really possible that people are buried alive in their coffins? Do they die in shock upon discovering themselves lying inside their final resting places? Number 1. Velcro.
Y'all do that to me, I'm haunting everybody.
Velcro is something that many of us use each day. In fact, there might not be a time when you don't use Velcro. It's in everything, after all. Furniture, clothes, toys, and some gadgets and tools use them. But did you know that a plant inspired the invention of Velcro? A random plant. This discovery is quite a shocker. It all began when Swiss engineer Georges de Mestral took a walk through the woods with his dog. But when they returned home, something peculiar caught Georges' eye. Burrs. Those pesky little seeds from the burdock plant latched onto his plants and his dog's fur. You see where I'm going here? Inspired by the tiny hooks on the burrs attached to his dog's fur, Georges decided to create something that could recreate this natural mechanism. Georges spent 14 years tinkering and experimenting, trying to replicate that magical hook and loop concept he saw under the microscope. And finally, in 1955, he introduced the world to Velcro, the revolutionary invention that would stick around, pun intended. Now imagine if Georges decided to call off his little walk. Would we still have Velcro? Or would we use a different mechanism to put on our shoes, seal small bags, and fasten clothes? Do you know any scientific breakthroughs? Be sure to share them in the comments down below. Also, check out our...
Man, y'all make sure y'all spam that like button. God, I love this stuff.